Hello, General Hospital today will reveal. After months of captivity and relentless psychological torment in a hidden prison beneath Windermere, Anna finally managed to escape the brutal control of Sidwell and Colum, yet freedom proved far more complicated than she had imagined. Stepping beyond the cold stone walls did not restore her strength or clarity. Instead, it exposed just how deeply broken she had become. The woman who emerged was no longer the composed, razor-sharp super spy once feared and respected across the intelligence world. Prolonged isolation, calculated cruelty, invasive experiments, and repeated psychological conditioning had slowly eroded her sense of reality. Her thoughts no longer moved in clean lines, and her instincts, once her greatest weapon, now betrayed her. Even in open air, Anna felt watched, manipulated, and hunted, as though Windermere had followed her beyond its walls, embedding itself permanently in her mind. Anna clung to a single rule with desperate discipline. She could not reveal what she had heard, what she had seen, or what she had begun to understand while imprisoned. The fragments she was carrying with her not merely disturbing, they were dangerous. Disconnected conversations overheard in the dark, half-spoken plans exchanged between unseen figures, and the reappearance of familiar names where none should exist all formed a picture too vast and too catastrophic to confront directly. The complications stretched far beyond personal survival and threatened to destabilize Port Charles itself. What terrified Anna most was not the memory of Caesar Thyssen, but the realization that his legacy had not died with him. The idea that his children, once presumed lost forever, could resurface so suddenly suggested a long-term design that had been set in motion years ago, patiently waiting for the right moment to tighten its grip. Trust had become a luxury Anna had no longer possessed, and only one person remained outside the circle of suspicion consuming her thoughts. Drawn by instinct rather than reason, she found her way to Felicia, arriving unannounced, hollow-eyed, and visibly altered. Her presence alone told a story of suffering far deeper than any words could capture. Felicia immediately sensed that something profound and irreversible had happened to her friend, and although shock and fear surged through her, she focused on protecting Anna from further harm. The silence that followed was heavy and deliberate, as though Anna needed time to confirm that the ground beneath her feet was real. She was finally conveyed the core of her fear. It was not through detail, but through implication. Whatever had been building beneath Windermere was far darker, far more organized, and far more patient than anything Thyssen had ever orchestrated. Felicia's fear did not stem from old enemies or familiar threats, but from the raw fragility she now saw in Anna. She had known Anna as resilient, controlled, and nearly unbreakable, yet the woman before her trembled under the weight of her own memories. Night after night, Anna's sleep collapsed into terror as her mind relayed echoes of confinement, whispered voices, metallic clicks, and the sensation of being observed even in total darkness. These experiences blended into her waking hours, blurring memory and hallucination until she could no longer tell which images belonged to the past and which were manifestations of damage inflicted upon her psyche. The figures of Sidwell and Colum lingered like shadows at the edge of her vision, while Thyssen's presence haunted her dreams, not as a man, but as a symbol of something that refused to stay buried. As Felicia watched Anna struggle to anchor herself to reality, she understood that survival alone was not victory. Anna carried knowledge that neither could expose a hidden war or destroy her completely if mishandled. Every fractured memory hinted at a larger architecture of control, one that thrived on secrecy, manipulation, and fear. Anna's greatest battle was no longer against her captors, but against the erosion of her own mind, where doubt and certainty constantly exchanged places. Whether she could reclaim her strength, confront the truth, and act before the unseen forces connected to Windermere struck again remained uncertain. What was clear, however, was that Anna's escape marked only the beginning of a far more dangerous chapter, one where the greatest threat no longer behind locked doors, but inside the mind of a woman who knew too much and trusted too little. Felicia quickly realized that leaving Anna alone was not an option. The trauma Anna had endured wasn't something time could quietly heal, it was a wound that festered deeper each day. But as she watched her friend unravel before her eyes, Felicia also understood she was in over her head. This wasn't just a matter of emotional support or offering a safe place to stay. Anna had emerged from something vast, calculated, and buried beneath layers of secrecy. Every time Felicia tried to reach for answers, she encountered only fragments, nothing whole, nothing certain. Yet the clues were there, seemingly left behind on purpose. Inside the lining of Anna's coat, she discovered a worn WSB security badge. A wrinkled paper listing cryptic sequences that looked like encrypted access codes. and a yellowing scrap that chilled her to the bone. Not everything that dies stays gone. These were not coincidences. Felicia suspected Anna somewhere in her fractured state. She had tried to leave breadcrumbs for herself or for someone she could still trust to follow the trail. As Felicia tried to piece things together, Anna was increasingly drifting away from reality. There were days Anna seemed lucid, even strong, and then without warning she would spiral into confusion. Convinced she had never escaped Windermere at all. She flinched at sudden movements, recoiled at the ticking of clocks, and covered her ears when footsteps echoed across wooden floors, as if they were the boots of guards returning to her cell. Some nights Felicia would find Anna crouched in a corner whispering to shadows, or pleading with an invisible interrogator to stop the sequence. Her screams were raw, guttural, filled with fear. Felicia could neither soothe nor fully understand. And yet she knew the only path forward was not to coddle Anna's delusions, but to confront them with evidence real, tangible truths that could pull her friend out from the abyss. Determined to expose the source of Anna's torment, Felicia orchestrated a covert plan. Under the pretense of acting on Maxie's behalf to evaluate a potential investment opportunity, she reached out to Sidwell, requesting a private tour of the Windermere estate, where some rumored technological assets were supposedly stored. Sidwell, ever the manipulator, welcomed her with feigned interest, unaware of her true intentions. Once inside, Felicia moved with careful precision, noting architectural anomalies, studying wall lengths and door alignments, until she stumbled upon a narrow stairwell partially obscured by a draped tapestry. She descended into the cold, dark lower levels, her flashlight sweeping across dust-coated corridors. One room stood out, its door bolted but not locked. Inside, the walls were stained with rust and lined with remnants of medical straps. Surveillance cameras, long deactivated, and shattered glass cylinders once used to contain unknown substances. In that moment, Felicia's breath caught. She didn't need Anna to explain. She could feel the residual horror of what had happened in that room. This had been a lab, a prison, and Anna had been the subject. Felicia snapped photos of the chamber and gathered what little documentation remained intact, knowing that if she was discovered, her presence could be used against both herself and Anna. She left no trace of her intrusion, but carried with her the weight of confirmation Anna's suffering was not imaginary. And worse, it was likely part of a larger operation still in motion. The question now was not whether Anna had escaped something real, but how far-reaching the experiment had been and who else might be caught in its web. Felicia began to wonder if others in Port Charles had also been manipulated without knowing. If the entire return of Britt and Nathan was merely one thread in a broader tapestry of control, her sense of urgency intensified. Anna's damaged mind held the key to a truth someone powerful wanted buried. Back home, Felicia faced the most delicate challenge of all, showing Anna the evidence without triggering another collapse. She approached with patience, holding out the photographs one by one, waiting for recognition to flicker in Anna's eyes. It did slowly, painfully, but it came. Anna trembled, stared at the images, then clutched Felicia's hand with a grip that bordered on desperation. She couldn't form sentences yet, but her silence spoke volumes. Felicia knew this was only the beginning of a far more dangerous descent into a conspiracy neither of them could yet name. But now they were not alone in the dark. Now they had each other and a reason to fight back. When they returned home, Felicia chose silence over reassurance. She sat beside Anna without questions, without explanations, simply holding her hand as though anchoring her to the present. The house was quiet, but the stillness carried weight rather than comfort. Anna sensed the shift immediately. There was something different in Felicia's gaze, an unmistakable gravity that told her the truth had been seen, even if it had not yet been spoken aloud. In that shared look, recognition passed between them. Felicia knew now. She had been to the depths Anna could barely describe, and she had come back changed. In that brief wordless exchange, an understanding formed between two women who had once fought in the shadows for Port Charles, and who now realized they were standing at the edge of another invisible war. Whatever had been done to Anna was real, deliberate, and unfinished. The time for hiding was ending. Yet resolve did not bring clarity. The question of who to fight and how hung heavily over them. As Anna tried to piece together the fragments of her fractured memory, something far more terrifying than her imprisonment began to take shape. In the space between sleep and waking, when her mind loosened its grip on reason, a suppressed recollection surfaced. She remembered Sidwell speaking not as a mastermind but as a subordinate, his voice careful, deferential, shaped by fear or reverence. There had been another presence, unseen but unmistakably dominant, someone whose authority eclipsed the WSB itself. This figure did not need to appear physically. Their power was systemic, absolute, capable of altering records, erasing identities and rewriting narratives as if reality itself were a document to be edited. One name echoed faintly through the memory, detached yet commanding, lingering long after Anna woke in a cold sweat. Orpheus. The implications of that name unsettled everything Felicia thought she understood. If Orpheus still existed, whether as a man, an alias, or a mantle passed from one architect of control to another, then Sidwell and Cullum were merely instruments. Any move Anna and Felicia made could already be anticipated, monitored, or manipulated. Port Charles once again risked becoming collateral damage in a clandestine power struggle hidden beneath ordinary lives. The threat was no longer a single enemy to confront head-on, but an intelligence that thrived in secrecy, feeding on misinformation and psychological fracture. The danger did not announce itself. It waited patient and unseen, embedded in systems meant to protect. As these realizations settled in, Anna's confidence wavered. The greatest irony was cruel and unavoidable. The woman who once trusted her instincts above all else could no longer trust her own mind. Each memory felt suspect, each conclusion provisional. She feared that what she believed to be insight might be manipulation lingering from her captivity. The question of whether she could fight without certainty gnawed at her relentlessly. Felicia, watching this internal struggle unfold, understood that her role had changed. She was no longer simply a partner in action, but a guardian against the very darkness threatening to consume Anna from within. Holding her together now required vigilance, patience, and strength of a different kind. What lay ahead was not a clean rescue or a swift reckoning, but the slow unveiling of a reality warped by control and deception. Behind closed doors that appeared safely shut, something vast was still moving, recalibrating, preparing. Anna's escape had not ended the nightmare. It had exposed the first crack in a much larger structure. For those watching from the outside, a new chapter of General Hospital was beginning, one where fear no longer stemmed from remembered villains, but from the unsettling realization that truth itself could no longer be trusted. Especially by the woman who once embodied unshakable certainty.